Hi, and welcome to Order Up with Chef Eric. We are fast approaching the food lover's favorite holiday, and that is, of course, Thanksgiving. Luckily, Chef Eric Durst of the Firehouse Restaurant is here to help us prepare for that big day. We'll start with the most important part, and that is, of course, the turkey, which we're going to brine and then stuff, and then we'll move on straight into dessert for a pumpkin cheesecake. So, all right, let's say hello to the bird over here.
All right, we're going to start, like you said, we're going to be doing two things today, both the main course and a dessert. We're going to start with a turkey. This is probably about, I'd say, 15 to an 18 pounder. What we do is we brine our turkeys. A few weeks back, when I wrote the beef column for the paper, I talked a little bit about brining. Brining is a type of marinade. It consists of some salt, some sugar, as well as an acid. In this case, we were using apple cider. I'll post a recipe for the brine, but basically it's just, you're just going to boil it all, mix all the ingredients, some kosher salt, brown sugar, some apple cider. We threw in a little bit of thyme and rosemary, as well as some orange and lemon zest. Peppercorns, you bring that to a boil, let it cool down, you put it into a marinating bag. You can buy store-bought marinating bags. In this case, we just used roughly a garbage bag because the turkey was so large. We put it into a bucket, makes it a little bit more stable, but basically all you would do is pour the brine on. You want to tie it up, make it nice and tight, so you do pull the liquid up. It completely submerges the turkey. You want to let it sit roughly overnight, 16 to 20 hours, depending on how long you want it to sit. The benefits of the brine, really, what it does is it makes the water molecule stay in the muscle. Through osmosis. It basically keeps the moisture, keeps the turkey from drying out. So that is why we brine meats. You can brine anything from lean meats, such as, say if you were doing wild game like venison or pheasant or stuff like that that doesn't have a lot of fat on it. Brining is great for that because, like I said, it does keep the moisture in it.
All right.
So we remove this from the brine. And you would just take it out.
There he is.
We'll put that there. And then what we're going to do is we'll start on the stuffing for it. We are going to do actually breakfast sausage sage stuffing, which is we do get this sausage. We make it over at Peach and Superfoods. It's just basically a ground pork sausage, but it's flavored with some maple and some sage, so it's more of your breakfast sausage type.
All right.
So what we'll do is once we get that rendered off, I have some started back there. We're going to cut a little mirepoix for it. We're only going to use about half this onion because it's pretty large. We'll keep the other half there. We're actually going to put some mirepoix into the roasting pan for the turkey as well. That'll help with the gravy toward the end.
Okay.
So basically this stuffing, you can use your basic stuffing that Mom makes every year or whatever. You could just add the... we're actually going to go in this pan with it.
All right.
We're actually just adding some sausage to the recipe. It's a very basic stuffing recipe. Like I said, if you already have a pretty good one that you use, the sausage actually just makes it better. I like the sausage in it because of the fat content of it. It also helps flavor the turkey as well.
Okay.
All right, so we have the onions in the sausage. Now we're going to add the celery. And we're just going to saute these up for a little bit until they get nice and translucent. And once you saute those for a few minutes, when they start to get soft, here we have just a little bit of chicken broth. I do have some dried sage mixed in with it just to help with the stuffing flavor. We are going to add some fresh as well, but the dried is nice because it's rubbed. It's a powder form, so it does get throughout the stuffing very nice. So we'll just let that simmer for a couple minutes while we're cutting our bread. You can buy the store-bought breadcrumbs or croutons. I like using day-old fresh Italian. It's a little bit nicer you'll find that the store-bought croutons, they're very dry, so they do take a lot more moisture to get really nice and moist. So I basically just use fresh, and just because I think it makes for a nicer product.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. My family every year does the from bread, and it can't be beat.
Yeah, and even if you have a loaf of store-bought laying around, it's definitely better than, say, the dried croutons.
But you recommend white bread?
You can. I do know people that if I have some wheat laying around, I have put in wheat bread before. It's a nice change. Flavor-wise, you don't want to get too strong with, say, a pumpernickel or a rye, unless you might be doing something that has those flavors in it. But yeah, basically a white or a wheat I try to stick with. You could even go, say, a multigrain. Multigrain wouldn't be bad. It has oats and different grains and stuff like that. That probably wouldn't hurt, because flavor-wise, it's pretty calm. But like I said, basically your white or your wheats are probably the best to stick with. So roughly, like I said, one loaf is probably just about enough for this turkey. It will shrink up a little bit, once we add the hot liquid to it. We're also going to add some fresh herbs. Add some fresh sage here.
Sage.
And a little bit of fresh thyme. The thyme, you just kind of want to pull the leaves off the vines. You don't want to get too many of the stems in there. They're a little tough. They're a little woody. So biting into them isn't too appetizing, but very easy to clean. Like I said, just pull them right off the stems. Leaves peel right off.
And the smell of those two together is great. And you recommend fresh instead of just dried.
Yes. Like I said, I do have a little bit of rubbed sage in with the chicken broth that we added to the mirepoix, just because it's ground. It's more of a powder form, so it permeates through the broth and the bread a little bit better. But the fresh is nice, just to give it that little bit of an extra.
And you called it, what did you call it? What's in here?
The mirepoix.
That's just the name of the.
Yeah, mirepoix is usually just a basic mixture of 50% onion to 25 pound of carrot and celery.
I see.
We're not actually putting any carrot into the stuffing. You could, it wouldn't hurt it, but we're basically just going to use the carrot to roast the turkey in. So now that we have the fresh herbs in there,
it smells great.
We're going to grab our broth mixture, which just has the breakfast sausage rendered down. We put the mirepoix, the onion, and the celery in it, sauteed a little bit. I added a little bit of chicken broth that has some sage in it. Some of the rough dried. So we put that in there. We give it a little mix. Now what you want to do, and you can add the liquid hot, but what you want to do, if you do add it hot, you want to let it cool down for a few minutes.
Before you stuff?
Well, and you want to put you want to add the eggs.
Oh, the eggs.
If you put the eggs in there when it's too hot, they'll kind of cook on you, as opposed to firm, using as a binder. So you definitely want to let them cool down a little bit. Now, depending on salt and pepper, you want to add a little bit, but not a whole lot. Because we're going to season the inside of the turkey, so it'll pick up a lot of salt from that. Plus, depending on the chicken broth you're using, it might have a lot of sodium in it, so you might not want to add too much salt to the stuffing.
And how many is this going to serve, roughly?
Depending on, like I said, 15, 18 pound turkey, I would say you could feed 6 to 8 on it, no problem.
Okay. I was a vegetarian for like 8 years, so this is the first time I've been this close to a turkey. I'm kind of excited to learn how to do this.
Okay, so we got that all mixed. Now another thing too you want to remember on the stuffings of the turkey, especially when you're putting it in it, you don't want to keep jamming it in there until it's so tight it's like a brick in there. You want to leave it kind of loose. It doesn't have to be. It'll help let the heat kind of go throughout, and like I said, you won't have this massive lump of stuffing in the center either. So basically, when it comes to stuffing, we remove the neck and the organ package, the heart, the gizzards, the kidneys, stuff like that they pack in there. You can use those in stocks. You can hack up the gizzards and stuff and put them into the stuffing if you want. It's really personal preference. We just remove them.
Okay.
Okay, so here we go. Clean turkey. First thing we're going to do is we're going to season the inside of the cavity. Just a little bit of salt and pepper mix. You kind of want to get it nice and seasoned. All areas, bottom, top, sides, just to help it give it that little bit of flavor on the inside, because it's also seasoning the bones, which in turn is going to help season the turkey.
Okay.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll remove the tail piece. And then basically, we're just going to fill this up.
All right, I guess I'm...
If you want to go ahead and shovel that in there, hand it, whatever you want to do. And like I said, just kind of keep filling it.
In there.
We'll once we get a little bit in there, we'll kind of pack it down slightly.
I'm being messy, but
just get that down, just so we know we're getting it way down in there.
Use this. It's still a little hot.
Now, as of late, last few years, especially like the health department and stuff like that, they're not real keen on stuffing turkeys. And really that just boils down to cooking temperatures for internal. If you don't cook it to, the recommended 165 degrees internally, people have been known to get sick. But usually, I haven't found too many problems with it. Roughly, cooking temperature-wise, you're looking roughly 12 to 15 minutes at 350 degrees per pound, depending on your oven. It might take a little bit longer. And then, but usually that's pretty safe for an internal temperature. I think that's going to be good.
Good, all right.
And what I also do too is I also check the neck. You can also put a little bit in there.
Okay, there's more.
We'll just throw a little bit in there just to use up some of that stuffing. And then when it comes to checking the turkey, naturally, you have the, you have the popper on it, which usually goes off. But really, that only lets you know as far as what's going on with the breasts. The best way to check is a meat thermometer, naturally. Put your meat thermometer in 165 degrees. You want to check around the thigh and the leg joint, and then also you want to check the internal temperature of the stuffing. So you want to put the meat thermometer in through here, the breast, check it in a few different places, 165 degrees all around. You're good to go.
Okay.
So then when it comes to the roasting pan, we're going to just take the turkey. We're going to hack up a little bit of mirepoix. This is just some leftover mirepoix that we hacked up. And this is going to act as two things. One being it'll act to help flavor the turkey as it's cooking. And after we actually make the turkey, what we'll do towards the end, what I always like to do, we'll cook it the most part covered, but maybe the last half hour, 20 minutes, I do like to cook mine uncovered just to give it that nice color. And you can take all these scraps and throw them in there.
Yeah.
Now what also too this is going to do is when this turkey's done, we'll also use the drippings and the broth and any type of oil left over to make the gravy.
Okay, it's resourceful.
Right. So we're just going to, before we do that, I'm going to take a little bit of olive oil and rub this guy down.
Okay.
Makes it great for color. Presentation. Some people use butter. I like olive oil. Some of the milk fat in the butter can tend to get a little too dark. It can burn on you.
Okay.
And it also does wonders for helping the salt and pepper stick to it.
Okay.
Basically, we just rub that down. Give our stuffings one last pack in there. Keep them in there nice and tight. And then we're just going to seize it pretty generously. Most of this is going to melt off, flavoring the meat. And a lot of it's not going to penetrate into the meat, so you don't have to really worry about over seasoning. It's mainly just going to be on the outer end.
So how many turkeys would you say you've prepared in your life?
Wow. Well, I have had some jobs where we actually, some of the owners would do turkeys for, say, the local food bank during Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. So one place I worked, we would do roughly 20 for the local city food bank on Thanksgiving.
Wow.
So it's up in the hundreds for sure.
Yeah.
So basically then, like we said, we're just going to cover this with aluminum foil. 15, 18 pounder, looking at, 3 to 3.5 hours on 350. We'll cover it, like I said, last half hour. We'll uncover it, give it some color, and then we'll remove it and show the gravy.
Okay.
So in the oven you go. Then another thing too we'll move on to next is, while the turkey's cooking, show you how to do a real simple no-bake pumpkin cheesecake, which we'll move into next as soon as I get washed up.
Okay. All right, Chef, before we move into dessert, I just want to make sure to mention that all of the ingredients for the turkey, including the turkey itself, all the stuffing ingredients are found at Peachin's Superfood Market.
Yes, correct.
And if you're not feeling like you want to cook and you'd rather have someone else do the work, you are running a special in the month of November.
Yes, during the month of November, we do run some turkey specials, get people in the mood. Not too often. We don't want to, burn them out before it's time to make their own dinner, but we usually do something once a week, whether it's a hot turkey sandwich or turkey soup or whole roasted turkey dinners.
All right, great. Now let's move on to dessert.
Okay, what we're going to do is, since that turkey was so much work, as you could tell, we're going to do a really simple no-bake pumpkin cheesecake. All the same ingredients as the one you would bake, except no eggs in this one. Cheesecakes can be kind of strenuous, perfect oven temperature, perfect cooking time, perfect ingredients. So we're going to do a really simple one for you. Great to make actually while the turkey's roasting.
I like the individual serving sizes.
Yes,
nice.
yes. We're going to do it a parfait style as opposed to one big, lump cheesecake that you have to cut. These are individuals.
They're just ready.
They refrigerate real easy. You can save them for the next day, whatever. So we're going to start with the graham cracker crumbs. And we're probably going to get a few more out of this than 6, but those parfait cups are a little large, so we're going to do we're actually going to double this recipe.
Okay.
But when we do print the recipe up in the paper, we will write it up as a double recipe. So basically the same as what we're making here. So it's going to be just 2 packs of graham crackers. If you wanted to buy a flavored one, they have the honey ones, they have the chocolate ones. That's great. We're just doing a plain one though.
Yeah.
2 packs of those. We have 4 tablespoons of brown sugar. 4 tablespoons of white sugar. I'm just going to give these a couple quick pulses. You want them to kind of be almost like a grainy sand.
Okay.
They kind of, there's a couple really different ways you could do these too. If you wanted to do, say, an oven-safe ceramic baking dish, you could actually, we're going to add 1 stick of butter. You could actually form these into some small baking pans. And what you can do is you can throw them in a 350-degree oven for, say, 5 minutes. And what they'll do is they'll actually almost bake back together like the graham cracker itself. So it'll form more of a crispy crust. However, for this recipe, I like them better if we layer it. So we're really not going to bake these. Actually, too, if you wanted to put them into a container, you could actually form them in the bottom of these containers.
Ready to start already?
Well, I'm just going to show real quick. If you wanted to pack it down here in the bottom and even up around the sides a little bit, you could throw those into the fridge and let them chill, and they'll actually firm up and form kind of a crust too. But like I said, we're going to layer this one, so we're just going to kind of leave them rough.
Okay.
So basically, that's it on that.
How much do you put it in the bottom? Is that enough in the bottom there?
Since we're going to layer it, we're going to do layer that, then a layer of the filling, then a layer of the crust.
Keep going with it.
Right.
All right.
Okay, so next we're going to get our filling whipped up. We have 2 packets of 2 8-ounce packets of Philadelphia cream cheese. We're going to let these just sit out at room temperature, just because they blend a lot easier.
Okay.
If they're real cold, you'll tend to get some lumps in it and some chunks. So we just let it sit out 20 minutes, half hour, just to get to room temperature. Just whips up a lot nicer.
Yeah, this is a nice compromise. So you spend a lot of time on the bird and the stuff that goes into it, and then you don't have to worry about doing the pumpkin pie on top of it.
And naturally, it's not going to have exactly the same texture. It will be a little bit similar because of the baking. The normal cheesecake, once you would chill it, it would come out a little bit firmer. These are a little bit more creamier. But not that it's any less good. It's just different, a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So we're just going to whip this up.
I don't think anyone would complain.
No, definitely
I know
not.
I wouldn't.
We're just gonna whip this up, inject some air into it. A couple minutes just to lighten it up, make it a little fluffy. Philadelphia cream cheese, they actually do produce a whipped cream cheese.
Okay.
I have used it, however, it comes out almost a little too light, so I like just a regular. Okay, while that's whipping up, we're gonna add 1 packet of, this is a cheesecake flavored pudding mix.
Okay.
It helps with the consistency. It does give it that creamy cheesecake flavor. This calls for a 2-ounce batch. These boxes are typically 3.5 ounces.
Okay.
So we're gonna add about half of this bag.
All right.
I'm gonna whip that in as well. And we're gonna go with roughly 3 tablespoons of pumpkin spice. This is just a blend you can buy in the store. Cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice. Basically just to save you the trouble mixing it yourself.
Okay.
But yeah, you can buy pumpkin spice.
Another time-saving measure.
Correct. We're gonna lift that up to put our pumpkin in.
This is very kid-friendly too.
Yes, absolutely. We're gonna blend that for a couple minutes. Okay, now we got that mixed up. What we're gonna do is we're gonna scrape down the sides, just to make sure we get it all mixed in. You can see how a little bit of it's stuck to the side. So that's why you wanna make sure you scrape down the sides of the bowl. Mix one more time. When that's mixing, we're going to add some sweetened condensed milk. This will go, you'll notice there's no sugar actually in the filling because the sweetness will come from the milk. Go ahead and we'll stop it one more time. Re-scrape the bowl.
That's nice and smooth now.
Okay. And after we scrape that down, we're actually going to switch attachments. We're going to go from the paddle to the whip. The whip, the last ingredient we're going to add is actually Cool Whip. It's going to be a large container, and what the whip does, it'll help aerate the Cool Whip into the mixture.
Okay.
Which is why this is more of a beating device. It'll soften the cream cheese, it'll whip it. The whip's more for aerating and making things fluffy.
Okay. When I was a kid, I used to just skip the pumpkin pie and eat the Cool Whip.
The whipped cream,
Yeah, that's why I think these would be good for kids.
Let's whip it in. Just add a little bit more gradually.
Are you using the whole tub?
Yep, we're going to use the whole tub. Like I said, we just pulled out 6 parfait cups, but this will probably actually do closer to a dozen. If you wanted to, you could even say buy a couple pans of already made graham cracker crumbs. Just use this filling, put it in there, throw it in the fridge, and serve it like that.
Okay.
So we're going to go with one last scrape down. Just to make sure we got all those ingredients in there. And again, variations, you know, if you wanted to add a little bit more vanilla, you know, to richen it up a little bit. If you wanted to add a splash of, say, a pumpkin booze or something to give it that little bit of, you know, alcohol kick to it, even like a whiskey, say, like for a bread pudding type deal, you could do any of those things.
Or just pour the whiskey in a glass and have that with it.
You could drink it as you're eating. That would go too. about it. Okay, and what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead, we're going to move it over. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put them actually into a piping bag.
Okay.
So if you want to, while I'm doing that, if you want to go ahead and put the first layer down in those.
All right.
I'll get this filled up.
Do you pack it in or just kind of let it
You can do it both ways.
Okay. Doesn't really matter.
As long as you get a nice glob down in there.
Yeah.
So we're actually going to do it in layers. Now this mixture may seem a little loose at first, but once you chill it back down in the refrigerator for an hour, hour and a half, it's going to get real nice and firm back up. Also, too, it also makes a difference, too, say if you're using all the ingredients. Say the night before you want to put your milk in the refrigerator. Naturally, you want to keep the Cool Whip in there. Really, the only thing that's going to be room temp is the cream cheese. That should help to keep them together as well.
Okay.
So we're just going to put a layer in there.
And you could just use a spoon if you really want to be lazy.
Sure, absolutely.
That looks very pretty, though. Nice decorative element.
And go ahead and put another layer of crumbs.
Okay.
And you could add anything else you wanted to these. You could add, say, some candied pecans or a little bit of shaved chocolate at the end. You know, whatever you want to put on it.
Yeah.
And another layer. And then one final layer.
One more layer
of
for him?
that.
Okay.
That would about do it. You throw them on a sheet tray, throw them in the refrigerator, hour and a half, till they chill down nicely. Naturally, the longer you let them in there, the more firmer they'll be, the colder they'll be. And then when you want to serve them, just pull them out.
Oh.
Hit them with another dollop with some of that leftover Cool Whip you got. And they're ready to go.
Perfect.
No hassle, very easy, very simple. We did it in 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
The ingredients are all basically there for you. Very simple pumpkin cheesecake.
Okay, and once again, if you want to try this for yourself, those recipes will be printed in the Herald Standard, and all of the ingredients are available at Peachin's Superfoods Market. Thank you so much, Eric, for taking us through this delicious Thanksgiving dinner, and I can't wait to, well, maybe I'll try it myself. Right. We'll see. All right, everyone, thank you, and we'll see you next time.